All right, so over the course of the week, we'll talk Super Bowl. I've jotted down over the weekend, I put my 5 top Super Bowl 60 storylines together, right? And number 5 for me is under the headline of Why Not Us? The NFL is now truly a Why Not Us league. Dynasties, Chiefs were so prominent over the last 5 years, but now it feels like we've turned, and maybe this is an outlier of a year because we never had this before, but you realize that both the Seahawks and the Patriots, when the season began, faced extremely long odds to get to the Super Bowl, and nobody was picking them to get to the Super Bowl. You realize Seattle was 60-1 to make it to the Super Bowl. The Patriots were 80-1. The Seahawks were playing in the league's toughest division. They had a journeyman quarterback in Sam Darnold, who's on his 5th team. And the fifth guy on his 5th team, he doesn't go to the Super Bowl. Third-year young head coach in his, second or third year, Mike McDonald. They traded DK Metcalf. This team's not going to the Super Bowl. We're going to win the Super Bowl, 60-1. Patriots are even longer odds, as we told you last hour, at 80-1. I mean, they got a first-year head coach. I mean, think about the 11 coaches that have been hired in the last month. First-year head coach with a second-year quarterback who's actually the same age as the quarterback who just led Indiana to the national title, Jack. Fernando Mendoza. He's a baby, and they're in the Super Bowl. Listen to his college head coach, Mac Brown, recruited Drake May to North Carolina and was asked recently about, did you know he had this Super Bowl makeup when he was playing for the Tar Heels?
Well, he's very confident, and that's important. He's very humble. So he's a tremendous leader. He has the it factor. So all the other players want to follow him. And he's kind of like the Pied Piper. He walks in a room, everybody gets quiet and turns and wants to find Drake and go over and talk to him. And that's where his humble attitude comes in. And then he's so competitive. He wants to beat you at everything you do. And I saw him at a golf course with Mr. Kraft and Coach Vrabel, and I said, Bud, first year with Coach Vrabel, you better not win. He said, I'm going to beat him, Coach, if I can. And I think he did beat both of them, and he's still playing. So that's a good thing. I saw him in our players' lounge once.
All right, so there's Mac Brown. Competitive, humble, but, man, long shot, to say the least. And that's why this storyline number 5 for me is we'll count them down all week long. It's, anybody can win it any year. Why not us?
That's right.
Why not us? I mean, do you realize that these 2 long shots, this makes this Super Bowl 60 the most unlikely Super Bowl matchup in the last 50 years? As you said last hour, Jack, you maybe get one underdog.
Mm-hmm.
This is both underdogs.
Yeah, you get the New York Giants with Eli Manning, but on the other side of it is a 17-0 Patriots team.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Well, and that leads to the Texans and Cowboys.
That's right.
Why not us? I mean, I'm still on my walk to Dallas thing if the Cowboys win the Super Bowl with Jerry Jones as the general manager.
I'm a big Cowboys fan
in
these playoffs.
Yeah. Well, so what is the conundrum for the Cowboys? What's keeping them from being in this conversation? And they'll be 50-1 next year. The defense, right? I mean,
yes,
the defense is the problem. And the personnel, it's coaching, it's all of it. The offense is elite. But listen to this. I found this over the weekend. Andrew Siciliano talking to Jory Epstein. She writes for theathletic.com. She's really good. She was at the Senior Bowl talking to the who's who, talking about the Cowboys and why the Cowboys are likely to keep George Pickens, the wide receiver opposite CeeDee Lamb, as they try to rebuild their defense. Also, some thoughts on the new defensive coordinator, Christian Parker.
Near and dear to your heart, the Dallas Cowboys, still reporting on them. What's going on down there with the Cowboys?
Yeah, I talked to Cowboys Executive Vice President Stephen Jones when he was here this week, and I talked to him about their new defensive coordinator, Christian Parker, who was pass game coordinator, overlooking the DBs in the Eagles, or overseeing, I should say, the DBs with the Eagles this past year. First of all, they are fired up about him. I talked to people in Philly and former stops who work with him, and they're like, this guy's a genius. He communicates so well. He instills confidence in his players, and he understands how to really get the best out of them, both from a technique standpoint and a schematic standpoint. What was interesting to me is that when I asked Stephen Jones about George Pickens, their receiver, and what they're going to do, hey, are you going to franchise tag him? Do you expect an extension? How do you go about working it out? One thing he told me that surprised me is that the Cowboys defensive coordinator interviews actually further instilled their confidence in why they should keep George Pickens around. Because they're talking to all these defensive coordinator candidates, and they're like, hey, you guys were a pain to go against this past year. I mean, again, guys like the Eagles, they face the Cowboys, and they're like, well, usually, you want to put your best corner on the receiver. You want to kind of cloud and double it. And now it's like you need your best corner on one side, you need double on the other, and it really created some challenges. And so,
all right, so the defensive coordinator interviews Brian Schottenheimer and the Joneses conducted revealed kind of what we know, that you guys were tough, man. Your offense was really, really good. I wouldn't let that George Pickens guy walk out the door. So I think they're going to try to figure it out while rebuilding the defense. And we've talked about the free agent market. I've given you the examples of the New England Patriots who are here at the Super Bowl. They had 6-7 significant free agent signings in the last March in the free agency period. Now, they had a lot of money to spend. Cowboys are going to have to free up some cap space, but they've got to hit on some free agents. There's no doubt about that. And they have to use picks 12 and 20 to fix their defensive conundrum. They do that, Jack. They get the defense to, outside the top 10. If they get a top 15 defense next year, if they can get that with this guy, Christian Parker, and whatever adjustments they're going to make, they legitimately can be in the conversation to be in Super Bowl 61 because you still have Dak Prescott. If you keep Pickens, you got a young CeeDee Lamb on the other side. You've got, Jake Ferguson emerging at tight end. I think your offensive line can be a year more experienced and better. We'll see what they do with Javonte Williams at running back. But again, that's the headline. Why not us? Why not us? And the Cowboys have every right if they get the right moves made. And Jerry Jones gets active here. And lets Brian Schottenheimer run this thing. I think the Cowboys can be back into the conversation because who knows what's going to happen with the Eagles. Giants have a new head coach. Commanders were down this year with Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn making coaching changes. Why not us?
Yeah, the Eagles, it does feel, those are murky waters for them. I think they have all the talent in the world, but they just don't seem to be having much fun.
They hired Sean Mannion, the 33-year-old former quarterback, to be their offensive coordinator.
Look how loaded that offense is, and you couldn't get anyone to take a bite at that apple. You know what I mean? So maybe Philly, all the talent they have, that might not. We'll see. That Washington defense is still so old. I think the Giants are still far away. So why not the Cowboys? You're right. And I don't think they need a good defense. They need an okay defense.
Yeah.
That offense is so high-powered, especially we'll see what it seems like there's steam coming that George Pickens may be back, maybe under a franchise tag. I wouldn't count him out.
Well, let's hear so that's the Cowboys conundrum. We know it. It's defense. How do they fix it? They've got 2 first-round draft picks. Then they don't have a pick until the 4th round.
Can they hold teams under 30?
Yeah, for sure. 24. 24. Yeah. It's like the Texans, though. The flip side of their conundrum is quarterback. And what do they do with C.J. Stroud? And they're going to pick up his 5th-year option. Can he perform in January? I wanted to play this for you. Listen to the conundrum. So Clint Sterner, remember Clint Sterner played quarterback at Arkansas? He played in the NFL for a while. He's now doing a radio show in the mornings down in Houston. And I thought he made a great point recently about when he went to training camp and saw the Texans at training camp, he was concerned with the offense, and he lays out why. And he thinks D'Amico Ryans needs to make some adjustments with training camp this year and how they do their offseason as they're trying to improve their offense to join their elite defense.
I'm going to tell you, man, one of the things that just falls by the wayside, and it doesn't here because I brought it up over and over again. That training camp last year, that was a joke, man. I'm going to tell you, man, that was, if I were C.J. Stroud, I don't know how, this is, again, and I've complained about this multiple times, where C.J. Stroud's good guy image and his good guy approach to everything, it's detrimental to him.
Real quick, what do you mean about the camp so people know what you're talking about?
I mean, they just unleashed it. They did a lot of ones versus ones, right, which meant the number one offense versus the number one defense. And you saw what our defense was. Everybody knew they were going to be one of the best defenses in the league.
And this was a line that you're trying to put together.
Well, you had a bunch of new faces on the offensive line that never played together. You had a new offensive line coach. You had a new play caller. You had all new terminology. You had a new number 2 receiver. You had 2 rookie receivers. You had a brand new back who you brought in late to training camp in Chubb, and you had Woody Marks, a rookie.
I just playing a different position.
Yeah, I mean, and you just unleashed the hound. I mean, that was a Bush League approach, and I believe it stunted the growth of the offense. And I believe,
that's an interesting comment. That D'Amico Ryans, who believes in good on good and steel sharpens steel, there's Clint Sterner, a former quarterback, saying when I was at camp that they couldn't go in. I mean, it just stunted the growth of the offense, and he's exactly right. That it was a brand new offensive coordinator with a new O-line coach, brand new offensive line,
right,
new players everywhere, and this defense, which was all coming back essentially, just ambushed them on a practice-by-practice basis, and they couldn't, sometimes I remember Sark saying this a couple of years ago when he had a real good defense, was like, sometimes we got to pull back a little bit and let the offense have some success because confidence matters, and, to hear Clint Sterner say it, being at camp over and over again, they just beat down the offense on a practice by practice. So I wonder if D'Amico Ryans hears some of that and changes up, or there's an argument that no, you got to get better to be able to beat our defense, and that's how we're going to get better.
I mean, just think about it. Think about what we saw on TV with that Texans defense against that Texans offense. That'd be a bloodbath.
Yeah, especially at the very, very beginning with the new play caller.
New offense. Joe Mixon's still not out there. Come on.
And to his point, maybe an older, more mature C.J. Stroud says, "Hey, man, can you help us out a little bit? We're trying to figure this out. We're trying to get rhythm here, timing. And yes, we're playing the best defense in the league, and it's not going well. Help us out, D'Amico." So that's that goes to coaching, that goes to preparation for your team. And people will say, well, get better. But when you're that new and that fresh, and you're trying to install new things, create some chemistry, going up against that defense might not have been the best. So that'll be interesting because that's the Texans' conundrum. Can the offense improve? Cowboys have to get the defense, as you said, up into the top 15 and hold people under 24 points. If they do, they have a chance to win every football game. Texans, if they can score 24 or 23 or 22, they got a chance. And, we know what happened in the playoffs. They beat the Steelers, and then they went and got beat by the New England Patriots in a sleet storm. But, CJ Stroud playing without his number one receiver, the Pro Bowler Nico Collins, without Dalton Schultz after the first quarter. So his top two targets down. Either way, that was an uphill battle. But again, why not us? Houston and Dallas, I think, enter this offseason as right at the top of the list of teams that can say, why not us? Why can't we be in that Super Bowl next year like the Patriots and the Seahawks are this year?
Yeah, and at the moment, it feels like maybe Jerry's changing his tune a little. You're letting the new head coach.
Well, I think that's important. I think that's a great point. That
actually select his coaching staff.
Well, on Friday we talked to our insider from blogging The Boys, Brandon Laurie, and he said the same thing. He said, "Yeah, Brian Schottenheimer ran that coaching search for the defensive side.
That's a big deal.
He and Will McClay were on the front lines, and it wasn't Jerry hiring his buddy. That's big. That's big because I saw. We all saw what." Impact Brian Schottenheimer had on the offense when given control to hire the staff and build the assistants and build the run game with Clayton Adams. If he can be given the reins to help remedy the defense and work with Will McClay and Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones on the draft picks and the free agent signings, because you got to think they're going to you bring in a defensive coordinator from the Philadelphia Eagles, Jack. You're going to pilfer back to the Eagles and try to bring some players from Philly that know the system. There's a guy, Reed Blankenship, their safety, that could be a guy to target. He's a free agent. Or number 33 for the Eagles. That's a guy just because you want someone to come in who knows the terminology, knows how to operate the system you're going to run. So don't be surprised. And there's also Nakobe Dean as a linebacker from Georgia who's going to be available through free agency. We'll see if Christian Parker kind of bangs the table for a couple of those guys from Philly. And again, when he was there, they had the number one defense and won the Super Bowl one short year ago. So good hire. So there are the Cowboys and the Texans. Why not us? Because this is the longest shot Super Bowl in 50 years. So,
and who's the juggernaut next year?
Oh, and Indiana just won the national championship in college
football.
You feel
like Seattle will be back, LA will be back, but in the AFC, it's
I think Seattle's built to last, and obviously New England, they got a ton of cap space again to spend, and now they're going to both teams have money to spend, but they're going to be signing their best young players to lock them in. But either way, there you go. There's the NFL chatter. That's storyline number 5. Why not us?